If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, then you'll understand why I stayed quiet for 20 years. Because in my family, I was never the brother. I was always the stepbrother. My name is Ethan. I'm 42 years old now, but the story I'm about to tell you started the day my mom married David, my stepfather, when I was 21. David had 2 kids from his previous marriage, Marcus, the older brother, and Elena, my stepsister. Elena was only a couple years older than me. We grew up under the same roof as adults, old enough to know better, old enough to be responsible, and definitely old enough to understand what kindness costs. At least, I thought so. From the outside, we looked like a normal blended family. Holidays, dinners, family pictures. But inside that house, I was on trial every single day. It didn't start with shouting, it started with small things. Elena would misplace things, money, jewelry, paperwork, and somehow I was always the first suspect. She'd tilt her head, speak softly, almost sweetly, and say things like, "Ethan was the only one around," or, "I'm not accusing him, but it's strange, isn't it?" At first, I laughed it off. I thought, she's adjusting, she's insecure, she's hurting. So I tried harder. I fixed things in the house, took David to doctor appointments, helped Marcus with his business spreadsheets for free. I was the guy who quietly showed up. But the more I showed up, the more Elena hated me. Because when you're the type of person who feeds off attention, you can't stand someone who earns respect without begging for it. The turning point came at David's 65th birthday dinner. The entire family was there. Uncles, aunts, cousins, friends from church. The table was full, laughter everywhere. Even Marcus looked relaxed for once. I stood up with a small gift, nothing expensive, just a framed photo from when David and I rebuilt the old porch together. It wasn't about money, it was about memory. David's eyes softened. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You've been good to me, son." That word, son, hit the room like lightning. Elena's smile froze, and right there, in front of everyone, she decided to destroy me. She stood up with her wine glass and laughed like she was telling a joke. "Well, if we're handing out titles, maybe we should also talk about what Ethan's been doing behind closed doors." The room went silent. I didn't even understand what she meant at first. Then she looked straight at David and said, "He's been inappropriate with me for years. He makes comments, he gets too close, he thinks I don't notice, and I'm tired of pretending it's not happening." My hands went cold. People stared at me like I suddenly became something dirty. One cousin whispered, "I knew it." Someone else shook their head like I was a disappointment. David stood up slowly, confusion all over his face. "Elena," he said, "what are you saying?" She didn't cry, she didn't tremble, she looked calm, confident, because she knew something I didn't. In that moment, truth didn't matter, only the accusation did. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but my voice wouldn't come out. Not because I was guilty, but because I realized something terrifying. If I fought back in front of everyone, I'd look defensive. If I yelled, I'd look violent. If I cried, I'd look manipulative. Elena had set a trap, and my entire family walked right into it. David asked her for details. She shook her head and said, "I don't want to talk about it anymore. I just want him away from me." Marcus stepped forward. "Ethan," he said, cold as ice, "leave, now." I looked at David, the man who called me son. His eyes were full of pain and doubt, and that hurt worse than anything. I nodded and walked out of that house without arguing. I didn't slam the door, I didn't threaten, I didn't beg. I just left. Because I knew something Elena didn't. Some people win battles with lies, but they always lose wars with karma. And Elena had just declared war. What she didn't know was that her karma was already on its way. and I was going to be the one holding the door when it arrived.
After that dinner, my world collapsed quietly. No police showed up, no court case, no investigation. Just something worse. Suspicion. Marcus blocked my number. My cousins stopped replying. Even people I'd helped for years suddenly acted like I was toxic. I couldn't even defend myself properly because Elena didn't give me something specific to fight. She painted me with a brush so broad that the stain covered everything. I tried to call David once. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan," he said, tired. "Tell me you don't believe her," I whispered. Silence. Not yes, not no, just silence. That silence told me everything. He didn't want to believe Elena, but he also didn't want to risk being wrong. And when a man is afraid, he doesn't protect the truth. He protects himself. I moved into a small apartment across town and focused on work. I managed IT systems for a medical clinic. Nothing fancy, but it kept my mind busy. At night, I replayed that dinner in my head. Elena's face, her calm voice, the way she watched me like I was entertainment. Sometimes I wanted to go back and expose her, but I didn't, because Elena wanted drama. She wanted me loud, angry, unstable. So I did the one thing she couldn't handle. I disappeared. For months, I heard nothing. No apology, no explanation, just cold distance. But karma doesn't arrive with loud footsteps. It arrives like cracks in a wall. The first crack came from Marcus. One day, I got a call from an unknown number. "Ethan?" Marcus said. His voice was different, not harsh, not confident. I almost laughed. After months of treating me like I didn't exist, now he remembered I had a phone number? "What do you want?" I asked. He cleared his throat. "Dad's been asking about you." "Dad didn't ask about me when Elena accused me." Marcus sighed. "Look, things have been complicated." That was Marcus language for, "Elena is causing problems and I can't control it." "What happened?" I asked. He hesitated. "Elena's going through something," he said. I leaned back in my chair. Of course she was. "Elena always goes through something," I replied. Marcus lowered his voice. "She's been borrowing money. A lot. She says it's for her business, but she's hiding stuff. And Dad found some unpaid bills." I stayed quiet. Marcus continued. "Dad's health isn't great. He doesn't need stress. So I'm asking you, could you come by, just for him?" For him. Not for truth, not for justice, just to keep the family image from cracking. I wanted to say no. But David was older now, and despite everything, I still cared about him. So I agreed. 2 days later, I drove back to that house. It looked the same from outside. Same porch we built together, same garden David loved. But inside, the air felt heavier. David opened the door himself. He looked smaller. His shoulders weren't as straight. His eyes were more tired. But when he saw me, something in his face softened. "Ethan," he said. I didn't hug him. I didn't smile. I just nodded. He stepped aside. "Come in." As I walked into the living room, Elena appeared in the hallway. She stopped when she saw me. Her eyes widened, not with fear, with anger. Like she'd seen a ghost she thought she buried. "Well," she said, voice sharp, "look who decided to show his face." David turned to her. "Elena, please," he said, weakly. She smirked. "Don't worry, Dad. I'm not scared of him anymore." I looked at her calmly. "I'm not here for you. I'm here for him."
That made her jaw tighten. Because Elena didn't hate me because I was dangerous. She hated me because I didn't break. And for the first time, I saw something behind her confidence. A crack. Karma had started working, and Elena could feel it.
That evening, David asked me to sit with him in the kitchen. It used to be our spot. He'd drink tea, I'd fix something around the house, and we'd talk like real father and son. But now he stared into his cup like it held answers. "I'm glad you came," he said quietly. I didn't respond right away because I wanted to ask him the question that burned in my chest. Why didn't you defend me? But I swallowed it. David finally looked up. "I didn't know what to do," he admitted. "Elena, she said it with such confidence." My throat tightened. Confidence. That's what lies wear when they want to look like truth. "You didn't ask me," I said. He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I should've," he whispered. "I should've." For a moment, we just sat in silence. Then he said, "Elena's gotten herself into trouble." I raised my eyebrow. "What kind of trouble?" David leaned forward. "She's in debt," he said. "Real debt. And she's been lying about it." I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny. David continued. "She started some online business, said it was doing well, but bills kept coming, and yesterday a man came to the house asking for her." I felt my spine stiffen. "What man?" David swallowed. "I don't know," he said, "but he wasn't here for small money." At that moment, Elena stormed into the kitchen like she owned the air. "Why is he here?" she snapped at David. "You promised he wouldn't be around me." David rubbed his forehead. "Elena, please," he said. "This isn't about you." Elena's eyes shot to me. "Oh, it's always about me when he's involved, don't you?" I stood up slowly, not angry, not loud, just steady. "Elena," I said, "I'm not afraid of you either." She laughed, but it sounded forced. Big words for a guy who ran away. I stepped closer. "I didn't run," I said. "I stepped aside so you could expose yourself." Her smile faltered. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went pale for a half second before she forced it back. David noticed. "Elena," he said, "who keeps calling you?" "It's nobody," she snapped, but I saw her hand shaking slightly as she typed. That was when I realized something. Elena didn't accuse me because she feared me. She accused me because she feared losing control. Control of David's love, control of family respect, control of being the golden child. And now she was losing control of something much bigger, her own life. That night, I stayed in the guest room. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard Elena pacing in the hallway, whispering on the phone. Then, a soft sob. Not the fake kind she used in public, a real sob. The kind that slips out when nobody's watching. That sob told me everything. Karma wasn't coming. Karma was already inside the house, and it was walking straight towards Elena's door. The next morning, I woke up to loud knocking. Not on my door, on the front door. Hard, impatient pounding. David came out of his room in a robe, coughing. Marcus rushed down the stairs, already stressed. Elena froze halfway down, her face turning white. I followed them quietly. Marcus opened the door. 2 men stood outside, one in a suit, one in a leather jacket. The suited one spoke first. "Is Elena Carter here?" he asked. Elena stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Yes, that's me." The man held up papers. "Final notice," he said. "You owe $48,200. If you don't settle by Friday, we proceed legally." David's mouth fell open. "Elena," he whispered. Marcus turned to her like he'd been punched. $48,000? Elena started shaking her head. "No, this is a mistake," she said quickly. "I don't know that much." Leather Jacket laughed. "Lady, you don't even know how much you owe," he said.
You've been dodging calls for months." David looked like he might faint. Marcus stepped outside, trying to act tough. "Get off this property," he snapped. "We'll handle it." The suited man nodded. "You have until Friday," he said. Then both men walked away. The moment the door shut, all eyes landed on Elena. "What did you do?" Marcus demanded. Elena burst into tears, real tears this time. "I was trying to build something. I was trying to not be a failure." David sat down slowly, his hands shaking. "You lied to me," he said. Elena turned to him, desperate. "I didn't want to disappoint you." Marcus clenched his jaw. "You didn't just disappoint him. You could destroy him." Elena looked around like a trapped animal. Then her eyes landed on me, and suddenly her voice changed. "This is his fault," she screamed. Everyone blinked. Marcus frowned. "What?" Elena pointed at me. "He came back and now everything is falling apart. He's bad energy. He's poison." I almost smiled. Even in crisis, Elena's instinct was to blame me. That's how deep her sickness ran. David stared at her. "Elena, stop," he said weakly. But she kept going. "He's manipulating you," she cried. "He always has." Marcus looked at me suspiciously for half a second. Old habits die hard. I took a breath, and for the first time in years, I spoke with full authority. "Enough," I said. The room went still. I stepped toward Elena calmly. "You ruined my name," I said. "You turned me into a monster for your entertainment, and now you're trying to use the same lie to cover your mess." Elena's eyes widened. "You're threatening me," she hissed. "No," I replied. "I'm reminding you." I turned to David. "Dad," I said, voice steady, "she accused me because she needed power, and she's still doing it." Elena's tears stopped instantly. She stared at me, hatred burning. But behind that hatred was fear. Because now the family finally saw it. When pressure hits, truth shows, and Elena's truth was ugly. Friday was coming fast, and Elena had no idea what was waiting for her. Because debt collectors weren't her biggest problem. Her biggest problem was that her lies were starting to collapse, and once a liar starts collapsing, they take everyone down with them unless someone stops it. That someone had to be me. 2 days later, Marcus called me into his office. He ran a small contracting business. Decent money, decent reputation. The kind of man who thought problems could be fixed with authority. But his face was tense. "Elena's deeper in trouble than we thought," he said. I crossed my arms. "How deep?" Marcus threw a folder on the desk. "I checked her records," he said. "Credit cards, loans, payments. She's drowning. And it's not just $48,200. I flipped through the pages. The numbers made my stomach tighten. There were multiple lenders, late fees, threats of legal action. Marcus rubbed his temples. "She used Dad's name in one application," he said. "If this goes to court, Dad's retirement could be hit." That's when David's face appeared in my mind. Old, tired, still trying to love everyone equally. Elena didn't just lie, she weaponized love. "She needs to be confronted," I said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah," he said, "but she won't listen." I looked up. "She will if she's afraid," I said. Marcus hesitated. "What are you saying?" I closed the folder. "I'm saying I'll talk to her, but not like family." That night, Elena showed up at the house late. I waited in the living room. She walked in and froze when she saw me. "What do you want?" she snapped. I stayed seated. "Sit," I said. She laughed like it was ridiculous. "Don't tell me what to do." I nodded slowly. "Fine," I said, "then listen while standing." Her eyes narrowed. "You're enjoying this," she said. "I'm not enjoying anything. I'm finally seeing who you really are." She scoffed. "You don't know me." "Oh, I do. You're the type of person who sets fires and then cries for water. Elena's face twisted. You think you're better than me. I leaned forward. I know I'm not perfect, I said, but I never destroyed someone to feel powerful. Her hands trembled. Stop acting like a saint, she whispered. Then she lowered her voice. What do you want? There it was. The moment her pride cracked. I want the truth, in front of everyone, about what you accused me of. Elena's eyes shot up. No, she said quickly. No way. I nodded. Then you handle your debt alone. No Marcus, no Dad, no help. Elena stepped closer, eyes wild. You can't do that. I can, I said softly. You made me a villain. Now I'm just refusing to play the hero. She swallowed hard. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't want Dad loving you more than me. I blinked. That was the first honest thing she'd ever said. You lied about me, I said. You didn't just attack my reputation, you attacked my humanity. Elena's eyes filled with tears again. I know, she said. I know I'm sorry. I held up my hand. Not to me, I said. To the family. Elena's mouth shook. They'll hate me. I stood up. They already will, I said. You're just choosing whether they hate you for the lie or respect you for the truth. She stared at me like she was looking in a mirror she didn't like. And then she did something I never expected. She sank to the floor and whispered, I don't know how to fix this. I looked down at her. Karma had done its job. Now it was my turn to decide what kind of man I wanted to be, and I already knew. I wasn't gonna destroy her, but I was going to make her face herself. The family meeting happened on Thursday evening. David sat at the head of the table. Marcus to his right, Elena to his left, and me across from her. The room felt like a courtroom. David cleared his throat. Marcus said we need to talk, he said, about the money and about the family. Elena's hands were clasped so tight her knuckles were white. Marcus opened the folder. We're past embarrassment, he said. We're in danger. If Dad gets dragged into this, we lose everything. David looked at Elena, pain in his eyes. Is it true? He asked. All of it? Elena swallowed. Yes, she whispered. David closed his eyes like the word hit him physically. Then Marcus turned his attention to me. And there's something else, he said. Elena, you need to address what you said about Ethan. The air froze. David's eyes opened slowly. His gaze moved from Marcus to Elena to me. Elena, David said quietly, was that true? Elena's lips trembled. She looked at me. In that moment, I could have crushed her. One sentence from me, and the family would bury her. But I didn't speak. I just waited, because the truth needed to come from her mouth. Elena's shoulders shook. Then she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. No, she said. It wasn't true. David stared, confused. What? Elena's eyes filled with tears. I lied, she said louder. I lied about Ethan. Marcus's jaw dropped. David's hands shook. The room spun into silence. Elena continued, voice breaking. I said those things because I was jealous, she admitted. I hated that Dad respected him. I hated that he didn't have to fight for love the way I did. David's face crumpled. And that was the saddest part. Elena didn't just hurt me. She broke David. David's voice came out like a whisper. Ethan, why didn't you tell me? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Because I knew you loved her, and I didn't want you to be forced to choose. David's tears fell quietly. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Elena looked at me through tears. "I don't deserve forgiveness," she said. I nodded. "You're right," I said calmly. "You don't." She froze. "But you will face consequences, and if you really want to change, you'll accept them without complaining." Elena nodded slowly. David took a shaky breath. "What consequences?" he asked. I looked at Elena. "You will publicly correct the lie to every person you poisoned against me, and you will repay the debt without dragging Dad into it." She whispered, "How?" I answered simply, "You'll sell what you have. You'll downsize your life. You'll rebuild your character." She cried harder, not because she was hurt, but because for the first time, she had no escape. And that's what karma really is. Not revenge, a door closing behind you so you're forced to walk forward as a better person. Or not at all. The next days were brutal for Elena. Not because people yelled at her, but because people stopped trusting her. And to someone like Elena, someone who lived on image, that was the deepest punishment. She started with Marcus's circle. He called a few relatives and close friends over. Small group, no loud drama. Elena stood in front of them, eyes red, voice shaking. "I lied," she said. "I accused Ethan of something horrible. It wasn't true. I did it because I was jealous and selfish." Some gasped. Some looked away in disgust. One aunt said, "How could you?" Elena didn't defend herself. She just said, "I know." Then came the hardest part. She had to call the cousins. The same cousins who stopped talking to me. The same ones who whispered at David's birthday dinner. She had to tell them the truth. I didn't attend those calls. I didn't need to. But Marcus told me what happened. "She broke down," he said. "She kept saying she didn't know why she did it, and no one comforted her." Good. Because lies shouldn't be comforted. Later that week, David called me into the living room. He held a photo album, old memories. He looked up at me like a man who aged 10 years in 10 days. "I failed you," he said. I sat down, quiet. He opened the album to a picture of the porch, me, younger, holding a hammer, him smiling next to me. "You were my son," he said. "You are my son, and I let fear and doubt silence me." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." I swallowed hard. Sometimes the apology you want isn't revenge. It's simply being seen. "I forgive you," I said softly, "but I won't forget." David nodded. "I wouldn't expect you to." Then he said something that shocked me. "I want to change my will," he said. My stomach tightened. "Don't do that because of guilt," I warned. He shook his head. "Not guilt," he said. "Clarity." He looked toward the hallway. "Elena needs help," he admitted, "but she also needs boundaries, and Marcus needs to stop enabling." I leaned back. "What are you thinking?" David exhaled slowly. "I want the house to go to you," he said, "after I'm gone. And I want Elena's portion to be conditional, only if she finishes paying her debt and stays honest." I didn't answer right away, because part of me didn't want anything from him. But another part of me knew this wasn't about money. This was about justice. And justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's a signature. Sometimes it's a father finally correcting a mistake before time runs out. David reached across and held my hand. "I can't undo what happened," he whispered, "but I can stop it from happening again." I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. That night, Elena came to the house quietly. She didn't storm in. She didn't act superior. She stood at the doorway like a stranger. I stepped outside. She looked at me and said, I lost everything. I nodded. You didn't lose everything. You lost the lies. Elena's lips trembled. I hate myself, she whispered. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said the truth she needed. Good. Hate what you became, so you never become it again. She cried silently. And for the first time, I didn't see an enemy. I saw a broken woman finally facing her reflection. Karma had humbled her. Now life would test if she could rebuild.
Elena sold her car first, a luxury SUV she used to show off online. The same car she drove to family parties like she was royalty. She traded it for a used sedan. Then she moved out of her expensive apartment and into a smaller rental. Every step was painful, but she didn't complain because she knew she deserved it. One afternoon, I ran into her at the house while she was picking up paperwork. She looked different, less makeup, less attitude, more tired, but her eyes were clearer. "Hey," she said quietly. I nodded. She hesitated. "I paid the first lender," she said. "Not much, but it's a start." "Good," I replied. She looked down. "I want to ask you something," she said. I didn't answer. She swallowed. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "After everything I did." That question hung between us like smoke. I could have said, "Because I'm better than you." I could have said, "Because I wanted Dad happy." I could have said, "Because I'm too kind." But I didn't. I looked her in the eyes. "Because I know what it feels like to be trapped inside your own mistakes," I said. "And because destroying you wouldn't heal me." Elena nodded slowly, tears forming. Then she did something that surprised me. She held out her phone. "I recorded something," she said. On the screen was a video, Elena speaking directly to camera. "I lied about my stepbrother Ethan," she said. "I accused him falsely. He never harmed me. I did it because I was jealous and angry, and I ruined his name." She looked at me. "I'm going to post it," she said. "Publicly." My stomach tightened. "That's going to destroy you," I said. She nodded. "I know," she whispered. "But it's the only way to fully undo it. People need to hear it the same way they heard the lie." I stared at her. This wasn't manipulation. This was accountability. "Do it," I said quietly. That night, Elena posted the video. Within hours, the reactions exploded. Some people called her brave. Most called her disgusting. Some said she deserved prison. But the important part wasn't Elena's pain. It was my name. For the first time in years, people messaged me. "I'm sorry. I believed her. I should have asked you. I was wrong." The poison started leaving my life. The next week, David invited me to dinner, just the three of us. No cousins, no church friends, no fake smiles. David looked at Elena and said, "I'm proud of you for telling the truth." Elena flinched like she didn't deserve it. David turned to me. "And I'm proud of you for not turning into bitterness," he said. Marcus wasn't there. He still refused to forgive Elena. And honestly, I understood. Some wounds close, some stay open, and some never fully heal. After dinner, Elena walked with me outside. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said softly. "I just want you to know I'm trying." I nodded. "Trying is the only thing you owe the future," I said. She looked at me with a mix of shame and gratitude. For the first time in my life, Elena wasn't my enemy. She was my responsibility. Not because she deserved it, but because karma had done its part, and I refused to waste the lesson. Because karma isn't only punishment. Sometimes, karma is a second chance you didn't earn, and what you do with it proves who you really are.
A month later, Elena's world was unrecognizable. She worked 2 jobs, one at a small office during the day, one at a restaurant at night. The same woman who once laughed at me in front of the family was now mopping floors after closing. Karma didn't just humble her, it rebuilt her from scratch. But the biggest test came unexpectedly. Late one evening, David collapsed. It happened in the kitchen. I was there because I'd started visiting more often, not out of obligation, but because I wanted my last years with him to be peaceful. He grabbed his chest and fell. Elena screamed. I called 911. At the hospital, doctors said it was a mild heart attack, survivable, but serious. David needed rest, no stress, no family drama. Marcus arrived later, furious. He pulled me aside. "This is Elena's fault," he hissed. "All this stress, her debt, her lies, Dad almost died." I didn't argue, because Marcus wasn't wrong, but I also wasn't going to let him destroy her completely. "She's paying it back," I said. "She's doing the work." Marcus scoffed. "Work doesn't fix evil," he snapped. Then Elena approached. She looked exhausted, her uniform still on, hands shaking. "I heard him," she whispered. Marcus turned to her. "If Dad dies, I swear." "Elena," I interrupted firmly. "Not now." She nodded, swallowing tears. That night, David woke up. Weak, but conscious. He asked for me first, then he asked for Elena. When Elena walked into the hospital room, she looked like she wanted to disappear. David stared at her for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. "I should have raised you better," he said. Elena broke. She dropped to her knees beside his bed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." David touched her head gently. "You hurt your brother, but the truth is, you were hurting too." Elena cried harder. "I don't deserve this kindness," she whispered. David looked at her with tired wisdom. "No," he said, "you don't. But kindness isn't earned, it's chosen." Then he turned his gaze to me. "Ethan," he said, "promise me something." I leaned in. "Anything." David's voice shook. "When I'm gone, don't abandon this family. Not because they deserve you, but because you're the only one strong enough to keep it from turning into hate." My throat tightened. It wasn't fair, but life rarely is. "I promise," I whispered. Elena looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You don't deserve me," she said. I stared at her. "You didn't," I replied, "but maybe you can become someone who does." Marcus stood at the door, watching. His anger was still there, but something else was there too. Confusion. Because he expected me to crush Elena, to take revenge, to be the villain she made me. Instead, I was holding the family together, and that made Marcus realize the truth. Elena wasn't the only one who needed karma. He did too. His karma was watching a man he mistrusted become the very backbone of the family he tried to protect. And karma doesn't always slap you. Sometimes it humbles you with contrast. Sometimes it says, "This is what strength looks like," and you either learn or you stay blind. David recovered slowly. He didn't become the same man again, but he became softer, like someone who finally understood that love without truth is just weakness wearing a smile. Elena kept working. She kept paying. Month by month, her debt shrank, but something else grew. Her character. One day, she came to the house with a small envelope. She handed it to me with shaking hands. "What's this?" I asked. She swallowed. "It's the last payment receipt," she whispered. "I'm done." I stared at the paper. Then I looked at her. Elena's eyes were swollen, not from crying, from exhaustion, from rebuilding a life with no shortcuts. "I don't know who I am without the lies," she said quietly. I nodded. "That's the point," I replied. "Now you get to choose." David called us into the living room that evening. Marcus was there too. David held a folder, legal documents. I updated my will, he said calmly. Elena flinched, expecting punishment. David looked at Elena. Your share is protected only if you stay honest, he said. If you ever repeat what you did, you lose it. Elena nodded. I understand, she whispered. David then looked at Marcus. And you, he said, you need to stop acting like control is love. Marcus stiffened. David continued. You protected Elena's image for years, and in doing so, you helped her become worse. Marcus lowered his eyes. That was Marcus's karma. Not losing money, losing pride. Finally, David looked at me. Ethan, he said, I owe you what I should have given you from the beginning. He stood up slowly and walked to a small box on the shelf. Inside was a key. He placed it in my hand. This house, he said, it's yours when I'm gone. Elena looked shocked, not angry, just shocked. David smiled slightly. Not because you're perfect, he said, but because you're the one who stayed kind when the world gave you a reason to be cruel. The room went quiet. Elena stood up and faced me. She took a deep breath. I won't ask for forgiveness, she said. I won't ask for closeness, but I want to say something I should have said years ago. She turned her eyes to the floor, then back up. Thank you, brother, she whispered. That word hit me harder than any apology. Brother, not stepbrother, not enemy, not mistake. Brother. I nodded slowly. Don't waste it, I said. Elena cried quietly. Marcus stepped forward awkwardly. He looked at me, then Elena. I was wrong too, he admitted. I didn't celebrate it, I just accepted it. Because that's how a real family heals. Not with perfect endings, but with truth, with humility, with consequences, and with the kind of karma that doesn't just punish, but transforms. So, here's the lesson I learned. If someone hurts you with lies, you have a choice. You can become bitter, or you can become strong, because karma will always return the energy people put into the world, but your character decides what you do when it returns.